Talk is about to start. Cool. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Felipe Fernandez, and I'm going to do a talk on Angular, an intro to Angular. It's going to be on data binding. And today I see some new faces. So, who's new? Like, who's first time here? Yeah, can you like introduce yourselves?
You want to stand?
Yeah, stand.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm standing.
You gotta stand, you have to do a little dance.
Yes. Say a little bit about yourself.
Everyone, my name is Javier. My first time here. I've known about this meetup for a while because I've never had a time to get here.
Really, I'll say.
But
I think I recognize your
my face.
avatar.
Yeah,
What's your language of choice?
Language choice is JavaScript.
Boo!
Don't get to harass everybody, best.
So yeah, I'm at Lander School with this guy and that guy, and yeah, I pretty much found out from this guy about this meetup.
Nice.
And then yeah, so right now I'm just looking for jobs, finish up my portfolio, and that's it pretty much.
Welcome, man.
Oh, thanks.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome. Yeah. We have someone else. I saw another hand go up.
She got self-volunteer.
If you don't feel like introducing yourself, it's okay.
You should.
Okay, you should because yeah.
My name is Alejandra, and I am engineering. New for me.
You trying to do web dev? You know? Don't know yet.
No.
You're gonna do game dev for .NET. Yeah.
Welcome. Anyone else that wants to stand? Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Jab, and I'm a student in university. And I used to use a React before, and I didn't have experience with Angular, so it's quite interesting for me.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Hey, welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, welcome to all our new members or new people. So this talk is going to be about Angular. Last week I did a little bit about Angular. Also, it was more on just making components appear on the page. This is going to delve a little bit into data binding. So let's begin. So previously we talked about what Angular is. So what is Angular? Does anyone remember? Yes.
Is it a framework?
Hey, yeah. It's like a framework that lets you build single page applications. So thank you. So we talked a little bit about what Angular JS, Angular 2, and Angular 8 are and the differences between them. Does anyone remember what the differences are?
Their name.
Their name. Yeah, thank you. Oh, but specifically Angular JS came out first, and then afterwards Google's like, we need to rebuild this, and they completely rebuilt it into Angular 2. And Angular 8 is just Angular 2, but a different, like, I know, like they skip between versions, so like a certain iteration of Angular 2. So Angular 2 and Angular 8 are pretty much the same. Angular JS, it's its own thing. Angular JS is also known as Angular 1, depending who you talk to. Okay.
Microsoft is worse.
And then we talked a little bit about that Angular uses TypeScript. So what is TypeScript?
Strongly
Type checker.
Yeah, type checker. So it's like, I read through a little bit of the TypeScript docs. They say it's a superset of JavaScript. So like by that, I get that it adds additional functionality to JavaScript in that it allows you to type your variables and yeah, all your other stuff.
Forces you not to be sloppy.
Huh? What?
Forces you not to be sloppy.
Yeah, it forces you to not be sloppy. It forces you to be a very good programmer. Right? And oh, and then last week we also created simpler Angular components that outputted static content. By that I mean it's just pretty much there was no logic involved. Just type in content into your Angular component and spits it back out onto your
Which makes it
browser.
reusable, right?
Oh, components, yeah, and we talked about how because they're components, they could be reusable. Alright, so a little bit about data binding. So has anyone heard the term data binding? Cool. So somewhat familiar. Alright, cool. So data binding is a concept. It's a way that allows your template and your logic to interact with each other, to communicate with each other. So, say you need to output something in your template. Use data binding to have access to data in your logic to output that logic onto your template. Or it could go the other way around where an interaction that happens, let's say a user click happens on the template and it changes the data within your logic. So there's 4 main ways that Angular does this data binding. The first one is string interpolation, which is a term that some of you have heard before, I bet. It just, Angular does it through curly brackets to a double curly brackets. And whatever expression you put in there, as long as that expression evaluates to a string, gets outputted as a string onto your template. Another way is to property binding. So whenever it's done through square brackets, and those square brackets bind the property to an expression or data onto your logic, so that whenever that's bound, that logic is also outputted onto your browser. So, and then another way is through event binding. That uses the parentheses, and then instead of going from instead of outputting from your logic to your template, which is what string interpolation and property binding do, an event is triggered, let's say on user click on a button, and then that changes the data within your logic. Yes.
Curious, you said that the double brackets, as long as it was a string, it would interpolate it. If your data is not a string, but it essentially has a, whatever it's called in the thing, a two-string.
Yeah.
Let's say you're 1, 2 string, it'll output it as 1, the string character?
Oh, so with the string interpolation, the double curly braces, if let's say it's a number, right?
Right.
A number is not a string, right? But it can be converted to a string.
Nice.
And then
So
so
as
the
long
double
as it
braces converts it to a string. Good question. Yes.
Will you give me an example of data binding?
Yes, I'll be giving examples. And then we have two-way binding. Two-way binding, I'm not gonna talk about today because when I went over this, there was just not enough time. I might briefly touch upon it if we have time. So yeah. So the setup on my local environment is through Node and the Angular CLI. You could also use StackBlitz to build the Angular application. It'll be a bit different, but if you guys have any questions, you could feel free to ask your neighbor or feel free to let me know. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so on the Slack I said to build your Angular app beforehand. Who's following along? It's okay if no one's following along. I know. Okay, cool. It's okay if no one's following along. I know some people like to follow along. So, yeah. So, I'm gonna go to my project that I built beforehand.
But it would be nice to see. Blow it up a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you guys can't see, if you guys need me to zoom in, let me know. So I built my app beforehand using the Angular CLI, and oops, I have stuff in there. Sorry, I have some stuff over here. Okay, cool. So this is a fresh Angular application. Zoom in.
Which version of Angular are you using?
I'm using Angular 8. I'm using the latest version. Okay. Okay. So how do you start the Angular application?
ng serve dash dash open.
Awesome. Thank you. What's your name?
Mitchell.
Thank you, Mitchell.
You zoom in.
Oh, yes. Is that good? Okay. This does take a little bit of time. So after my first talk, who went home and like experimented with Angular? No one. It's okay. It's alright. So you should see something like this. I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Alright, so what we're gonna do is go to your app.component.html, select everything, and we're gonna delete it. And then so afterwards, when you go to your browser, you won't see anything. Now I'm gonna hello world. I'm gonna check my .ts file, and I'm just gonna do this, make it clean, save. Oh, a little bit more big. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Oh, whoa, to me.
So that's even better.
Doesn't give much space, but there you go.
There you go. Okay, cool. So I deleted everything, and hello world. Okay, cool. So, do you guys remember how to create a component in Angular? All right, we're gonna do this manually.
CLI?
Yeah, no, but no CLI.
Oh.
How about manually? Does anyone remember? So, manually, I'm gonna create a new folder. So if it was the CLI, what would I have to type? If I wanna call my component test. So the ng Was it?
Something.
ng create component test.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, that.
and then or ng gc test. So a new folder. I'm gonna call this test. And then in my test folder, I'm gonna create something called test.components.html. And then another file, test.component.css, and another file called test.component.ts. So CSS is my styling, HTML is my template, and my TS file, which is TypeScript. My TypeScript file is my logic. And so in my TypeScript file, I'm gonna import component. This is review of what we did last time. But if you have any questions, just like let me know. Or if you need me to slow down, let me know. Yes.
Why did you type in, let me sure, test doc component? What's the doc component?
Oh, it's just standards. Whenever you build an Angular component, they like it when you have dot component. It's like
So this is
good, just good coder. Like that's what everyone does, and just following what everyone does. But it's not necessary. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. The reason why they like having component here is it tells like when you're coding and you see that you're like, okay, this is a component or this is associated with a component. So I'm importing Angular core. So component, the component that I'm importing is gives me my ability to use a decorator function, which is needed in Angular. And then I have to let Angular know what I want my selector to be. In this case, it's going to be app test. And then my template or template URL is going to be test.component.html. Sorry, I'll slow down. I'm good at that. I was practicing this like this morning, so now I got into the habit of just creating components like really fast. Cool. So then, what's the last thing I need? The last thing I need is my styling. My style URLs. And that's an array. And you have to specify where your style sheet is located.
Styles URL, is that just,
Yes.
okay.
Is that? Oh, what?
Like styles URL, style URLs, right?
Yeah.
You just, that's not, what I'm saying, that's just, best practice, name it that, or,
Oh no. So okay. So that at component is your decorator.
okay, cool.
So a okay. What's a decorator? I know I said this last week. So I want to remember.
The Christmas balls and the Christmas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I get it decorates. In this case, it's gonna decorate your class, and it's gonna decorate it by providing like metadata. So in this component decorator, the three keys are selector, template URL, and style URLs. And this gives it, I guess it gives Angular like directions of what to do with this class. It gives it information. So in this case, the selector is going to be app test, and the template is going to be the HTML file, and the style is going to be the CSS file. All right, and then what do I do next? I create my class.
You put a comma after that so that your screen will go.
Oh, for the decorator,
Do you have that? Is it like JSON?
you don't. Yeah, you don't have to have it.
Oh.
Well, in these you have to have the comma.
Oh, but not the.
But not-
the end one?
Yeah, I know. Like I thought, like something would be there when I first did this, but then it would give me errors. It's like, oh, okay.
That's about the thing. It is.
I like, I mean, in, well, you know, not this, but C#, it's either or. You put a comma there at the end, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't error if you don't, right? So you can put the comma there or you don't. It's the last element is the last element.
Yeah.
But like JSON, you have to, you can't, yeah, you can't have the comma at the end.
Oh yeah.
Because it thinks there's another element there in JSON, and there's not.
So I'm gonna save my file, and then I wanna add something to my template, and I'm gonna add like test component, and then save it. Okay, so will this component appear on my
Nope.
browser? Good. Does anyone know why?
Yeah, because you didn't tell the name of the component in there. You didn't put a component. I mean, there's no component in there. It's just a header, right? You have to put app test as a component name, right?
Yeah. And I'm gonna put it in my, I guess my parent template. So then, so remember we had something called selector. In our TypeScript file, app test. That tells Angular to look for a certain selector. In this case, it can be app dash test. So the names match. And then will this appear in my browser? No.
You can't see you don't have anything for like a value or anything, right?
Mm-mm.
Don't you have to have something? I can't see the thing below.
Don't you have to have something
You have to
inside
have
the
something
tag?
for app test to display, right?
So
I mean,
it's
it's
not.
not doing anything right now,
So it's
right?
not, well.
Or maybe I missed where you created the test component inside the.
So you're right that it's not gonna work, but the reason is because the component isn't defined within the module.ts file, the module TypeScript file. So remember, like if we go here and we inspect it, I know this is kind of small, but it says that app-test is the unknown element. It's not a known element. So to solve that error, we have to import it into our app.module.ts file. And it's located in our test folder. And we want this is test.component of the class. And that class is in our TypeScript file. And to let Angular know that we have this component, we add it to our declarations. I know it went kind of fast in that last part.
So you create a folder for test, right?
Yes, I created a folder for test. And I put my 3 files in there. Cool. Any questions? No. So then we have our test component. So this is our parent file, our parent template. It looks for app-test. And so then it looks in, it goes through here, it's like, okay, our template is this HTML file. And it's like, okay, we're outputting this wherever there's an app-test in our template. Yes? Yes?
Can you go through each page one more time?
Okay, cool. For our component, our TypeScript file is our logic. We have our selector, which is the app.test that we're gonna use into in our app.component.html file. We have our template. This is the template for our component, which is our test.component.html file. And then we have our style URLs, which is our CSS file. So all of this, well, these two are located here in our app.test, is used in our app.component.html. And this is our class. So where's this class used? It's used in our, this right here. And this class helps Angular recognize that there is a component called test component. And we put this class in our declarations. And then whenever we need to add it to our application, we just put app-test. So notice we have hello world and app-test. Whatever is in the component is going to be displayed on the browser. So we have our hello world and our test component. So if I do, I don't know, I'll add an exclamation. It's updating and it adds it there. Okay. Any files you guys want to look at real quick? Are you guys good? Good? Alright, cool. So now we're going to begin our talk with string interpolation. So, okay, so in our logic, in our TypeScript file, test.component.ts, we're gonna create a variable called greeting. And we're gonna type it as string. And we're gonna say hello world. Cool. So notice the syntax is a bit different. So we're used to using let, bar, and all of that. But because we're using TypeScript, how it works is we could just declare it like inside a class. But you don't have to type it. It does something called when you declare it for the first time and you set it, like for example, to a string, it types it as a string. But when you change it, let's say greeting, I change it to greeting equals 5, it's gonna give you an error. But it's good practice just to type it at the very start. It makes it easier to read your code. Okay, cool. Save it. So we have a variable called greeting in our TypeScript file, which is our logic. So if we want to output it in our template, we do double braces and the name of the variable. So what's going to happen is that it looks for greeting and just outputs whatever the value of greeting is in here. So we have hello world. And let me make it into each one so you guys can see. Okay. Hello world.
Do you need the spaces?
Or hello, I'll call it.
Do you need the spaces
What spaces?
before and after greeting?
No. I like it because it's cleaner for me. It's called hello IESD. Okay, cool. Any questions? Pretty basic. Okay, cool. So now, I know I gave this example earlier. Let's say I have like members, and we're gonna type it as a number. So we're expecting this to be a number, and let's say like 892. And in our
What all types does TypeScript have? Does it? Because it's not all, right? Like, can you define your own types?
you can,
Oh, okay, cool.
yes. When you create an object and you want to use it, yeah. Good question. So this was members, right? Okay, so I have this variable called members. It's a number type, and I set it equal to 892. And because we put it in these double braces, it's gonna be transformed from a number to a string. And then we have members. I did some wrong. Members. Okay, that was weird. Okay, so I have 892 here. Okay,
You
so
didn't save it before you click refresh.
thank you.
No. Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So now, okay. Okay, so inside the curly braces, the double curly braces, I can also do calculations.
Well,
So for example, this is a string, right?
Is being pulled in as an output as a string.
So in here in the double curly braces, I could add another string to it. So this is a form of a calculation.
A string literal you can add to it?
String literal.
Isn't that what it is when you put the plus string in quotes?
Oh, string literal is, this is just a simple string. String literal, well, in JavaScript is like the double this format.
Okay, but I mean, you're manually putting a string, it's not.
Yeah, manually putting a string there. Yeah, so the greeting was, hello IESD. I'm adding 3 exclamations to it. So it's gonna be 4. So there you go, 4. And I could also, let's say, what was it, 892? Let's say if I add 5, it should be,
Doesn't have to be quotes?
because members at this point is a number.
Okay,
And
so you're not doing
yes.
string addition, you're actually adding to the value of the number.
And
Yes.
then the whole thing is gonna get converted to a string.
Yes, good.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So what happens if you put quote 5?
That's
5 would be a string then.
Then it's just gonna append 5 to the end of numbers.
That's
Or is
fine.
it gonna give
I
you a
don't
type
know-
error?
I don't know how Angular does it append with the plus, or is it?
Because the numbers get added
That's
to
a
the
good,
string,
yes.
and
Yeah,
the
but-
5 I converted into a string.
Like JavaScript will
It'll-
tell you
yes,
that, but just
yeah.
like-
Will it
like-
concat?
I
Or
don't
will
know.
I was gonna
Angular
say, I
go
don't know
like-
how it's gonna
Because
do
it's
it,
TypeScript.
because it's JavaScript, but
Let's find out.
What's the
That's
answer?
a good
What happens?
question.
in most typed languages, you get an error if you did that.
So it comes.
So it just does string addition, or
Yeah.
concatenation.
The casting to the string happens first, and then it evaluates the addition operator, and then just like casting.
Basically, it's giving an error when it tries to add the number in the string, so then it's converting the string and then doing string addition.
I don't think it gets to that point. Members, it's gonna take care of converting members to a number first, to a string, getting a string representation of members, and once that's done, then it's going to look at the right side of the operator, and then do a concatenation.
So if you put that without the quotes, would you get an error?
If you put it without the quotes, since 5 isn't a string anymore, it's a
We're
number.
at-
It's gonna add 5 to, what's it, 892. So you get 897. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is trying to do that, and then it's gonna throw an error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So it's looking
behind
at
the
both
scenes-
types first.
Behind the scenes, though, it's doing that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What was your name again?
I'm Anthony.
Oh, Anthony. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cool. So, like, what he was explaining was coercion, where if you have a string and a number, it coerces the. If we had a string and if we have a number and a string, it coerces the number into a string, and then it
See,
can
that's,
But it,
that's problematic, though.
well, yes,
It should throw an error, because
if
you
you,
can have unintended consequences.
if you swap it, so that the right side is 5, but it's a string. I think it'll look at both sides of the operator first, so we won't actually see anything different here, but maybe it only looks at the left side
It should be
first.
5, 8, 9, 7 if you have 5 plus members plus 5, right?
5, 8, 9, 2. I think.
Well, now it's gonna be 5, 8, 9, 2.
Yeah,
5, 8, 9.
so it's looking at both sides first, and maybe doing a
Yeah, see
conversion and
that?
see.
I don't like that. Well,
It's-
no, because it's
It's
too
implicit.
easy, it's too easy to add errors in
Yeah.
swap code.
It
Because
Yeah, I mean, it provides flexibility, but at the same time, there's
it's
a drawback to that
it's
flexibility.
promoting lazy coding.
Yeah. All right, cool. So where am I at? Okay, let's go back to members and the number 5. Okay, another thing you could do within the curly braces is you could call a function in them. So let's say, let's call it curly. So this is a function. I haven't created the function yet. So I go over here, call it curly, and I say I return, what?
No.
Curly, right? Okay, so this is curly. It calls a function. It returns a string. I don't want to call it curly. I call it something else. So I'm gonna save both files. Yeah. I don't know why. When you run it, it's supposed to refresh on its own. Not doing that right now. It's supposed to be reloading enable. Okay, so when you have a function and you call it within the curly braces, you could use that to use the function to return whatever calculation you want here, and then it'll spit it back out here, and it'll be converted. The result will be converted into a string. So let's see. And then you could also do calculations here. Cool. Any questions on that? Anything you guys want to try out? Cool.
Can you do output inside the function before you have it returned?
Output inside the function.
Document.write or whatever.
Oh, that is an interesting question. Can you call another component inside that function? So, like, say you have a component that does something, some function.
Yeah.
Right? Can you call that from inside another component? I know you can nest components, but I'm curious whether you can call functions.
You could call another function
So,
inside here.
what was the first one? Apptest. Can you call curly from inside apptest?
Oh, I see. Like within here.
I don't
No.
know. I'm just wondering if it, functionality is.
I believe. I don't think so, because it's you're not okay. So this is later on, like I guess in like a future talk, like how it handles like parent-child logic. Real quick. I think it broke it. Yeah, it breaks.
Can you output text inside the function?
I'm actually output text. What do you mean output text? Like
From
document.
inside of the curly function, can you output text like document.write or
Oh yeah.
whatever?
I mean it's just a function.
And then it'll add that to the HTML page.
Yeah. You could do console.log. You could do whatever. You could do
But
any
it'll do
document.
the document.write or whatever,
Yeah.
regardless of what gets returned.
I mean it's just a function. You could do any sort of DOM manipulation within a function.
I know you said you were not going to talk about two-way data binding today. Are you doing any more of these? Or you
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah, I'm doing
okay.
property binding, event binding,
I got
and yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on to property binding. So, okay, you guys know what properties are in DOM elements, right? Can I get some examples? So, yeah, what's a property in like a button?
Attributes?
Hmm?
The attributes?
Yeah, the attributes.
That would be.
Yeah, exactly. Good answer. Google. So I'm creating an H1 element
Like,
of
you're
the
talking about
button,
like value equals something, right?
and well, like for example, button.
Makes a name.
Well, it has like a disabled attribute
Mhm.
or property, and let's say let's do hidden, and let's do max length, which is let's say 4. So these are all native properties or attributes that go with these DOM elements. So these look familiar to everyone, right? Like
Where's the
what
slash?
attributes? Oh, it's self-closing.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone's comfortable with like how attributes work in HTML? Yeah, so like for example, this is disabled. This is not Angular stuff, this is just regular HTML stuff. So the button is disabled, right? I can't click on it. H1 hidden it's hidden. So if I go inspect the DOM, where is it? So I have testing here in my DOM, and right here my DevTools, but it's not there because it's hidden. And then I have input to be a max length of 4. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's as much as I could type. So these are just examples of attributes in DOM elements. So we could do something in Angular called property binding. And how Angular does this is we put square brackets around the property or attribute, and we run functionality within these quotes. So, for example, since hidden is considered to be Boolean, a true or false value, so if hidden is there, that means testing is not being shown. But if it's not there, then testing is being shown. So, in my TypeScript file, I'm gonna create a variable called hide. It's gonna be a Boolean type, and I'm gonna make it false. Oh wait, hidden. Oh, I'll make it true. And then this is gonna be hide. Whatever hide is gonna affect what the attribute hidden is. So right now, hide is true. So is this DOM element, is it gonna be hidden?
Should be.
Yes. There. I don't know. My English is picking up here. So yeah. But if I put false, oh wait, one thing I want to show you guys is that so you can see here, hidden is there, right? I know it's small, I can't see this, but hidden is there. But if I change it to true,
False, right?
oh wait, false. False. Yeah. Okay, thank you, false. Alright, so you see that the hidden attribute is not there. So testing is shown. Alright, so we're gonna do the same with our disable button. So if I want to make this if I want to use property binding on this button, what do I have to do with disabled?
Square brackets.
Square brackets around disabled. Good. And then what I have to do?
Change the name.
What name?
Is it disabled or reserved?
No, disabled is an attribute. It's the same as hidden. They're both attributes. So you can use this same. I mean, it's reserved, but it's reserved for HTML, and then Angular has access to that attribute.
So you have to assign it to a variable.
Yeah. So what do you want to call this variable? It could be anything.
Disabled.
Yeah, disabled.
Disable. I'm gonna call it something different. Disable, just to make it distinguishable. And then I'm gonna call disable. What do you want to set it to? What do you want the initial? Oh, what do I have to type it as? Boolean. And what do you guys want to set it to? So it's a Boolean. So Boolean
True.
values are only yeah. So what do you guys want to set it to?
True.
True. So is the button gonna be disabled?
Yes.
So disabled is true. So this attribute is gonna be attached to this DOM element. So it's gonna be disabled. Cool. That works. Okay. If I want to change it to not be disabled, what do I have to do?
Change the Boolean
false. Awesome. Save it. And it works. And I can click on it. Okay. So some attributes aren't true or false, they're values. So if I want to have if I want to use property binding on this, what's the first thing I have to do? Square brackets, right? And then I want to use another variable. Let's call it, what do you want to call it? Length, thank you. And then go to TypeScript, and I create a length variable. And what do I have to type it as? Number. And what do you want to set it to? 10. Right. I'm saving this. I'm saving this. Cool. And refresh. Okay. So on Angular, whenever it's on some attributes, you might have to change a little bit of what's called like how it's spelled. So for example, max length has to be a capital L if you're using Angular. Cool. So how many values can we type in this input? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then no more. Okay, cool. But for this, let's say we want to add 3 more. So we could also do calculations within the quotes. Let's do 10 is long. Let's do minus 5. So if we do this. So right now length is 10, subtracts 5, so how many characters can I type within input? 5, thank you, I got so I just type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can't do anything else. Cool, as expected, and I also call a function within this. So let's call this function get length. And I go here. I create a function called getLength, and I return 5. Let's do 2. Here, save this, save this. So then I go here. GetLength is not a function. GetLength. Okay, it works. So I could only have 2 characters. You could also put +2, and that'll change it from 2 to 4. And you can also do, let's say, I could return values within here, so like length. So I'll give you an example of that. So like I could do this dot length -3, and then I could return a new length. So originally it was 10. I take away 3, it's going to be 7. So right here it's going to only allow me to type in 7 characters.
Would you ever want to pass values into those functions, or do you find yourself typically always working within components context, so you could just reference the values directly?
Would I ever want to pass values?
So like your getLength function?
Yeah.
We have parameters and stuff.
Could you pass in parameters
Parameters.
to
Yes.
that function?
Yes.
Or do you mostly find that the parameters you would be passing are already properties on that component?
Yes, that's not true. That's more true. Like
That's
the
the
parameters
second
that I
one
need
okay.
typically are within my
The
logic.
context of
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. So 1, 2. I can't type like that. Can you type? Not typing. It's not letting me type. For some reason, it's not even letting me type. Oh my gosh! Why is this? Okay. Yeah. My English is acting up today. So I'm having trouble with my English. So I'm just running ngserve -open. I ended my application by doing Control C on my keyboard.
Can we see the get link function?
The get length, yes. So it calls this get length function, and it references this dot length. This dot length is located here. It's a number. Currently, it's
And
10.
what is length there? Should it be this dot length? Yeah.
Oh shoot, that's probably what it was. Thank you. Yes.
Give me a question. What does this signify?
Okay, so whenever you use a class, this references like the class, the object itself. So usually, okay, in JavaScript, if you're using JavaScript, you would have a constructor, and you would pass in variables that are like that you want this object to use. So let's say this was like a dog component, right? And let's say this is actually so click to this. So let's say I have let dog. So I have let dog equals new dog and Fido, and it's 8 years old. And then so I do class dog constructor. So I put name and age, and then put this dot age or name equals name, and this dot age equals age, and then you write other methods in here. So this is how it's typically done in JavaScript, but with the power of TypeScript, it allows you to have your variables here, and then this is implicit. It's implied that there's like a this, but if you type in this, it gives you like an error.
So this is not necessarily the parent.
This is the parent object. It's like this object.
So you type in this in get length, you're referring to get length.
So
Maybe
what-
another way to think about this is those variables he's declaring now in lines 10 through 14. He's declaring what he wants those to be when this object is instantiated. So when that object is instantiated, he can call get length and reference the variables in that instance. But if there's like 2 instances, then the other instance will maybe have a different value for them. But those up there are just kind of like declarative of what they will be.
yeah,
By the way, this whole concept is not an Angular thing.
yeah. This is not Angular thing. So you could do this in the this, like this. If you're not in Angular and you're using just plain JavaScript, or anything, right? Any other languages. If you have a class or in some cases an object, this is how you will see it in JavaScript. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Did that answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Where am I at? Save. Okay, cool. And the length will be 7 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait. It's 10 minus 3 is 7.
You have to set this dot length to this dot length minus.
Oh shoot, yeah. I don't know why I'm messing up today. It's not just my application. Thank you. Thank you. So it'll be 10 minus 3, which is 7. Compiled. So 1, 2, 3.
You have to do it. Dot half is a dot line of this.
No. I know. I don't know why my technology isn't working. I don't have any errors too.
Mine
Okay.
didn't-
Oh, I do have errors.
Mine gave me errors, but it still worked.
What's this error? Expression has changed. Alright, cool. Okay, so it's supposed to work. It's saying that there was an existing value before in here. Okay, I don't know, this is giving me errors. But anyways, so you can use property binding for this. Another thing, so you have a choice between string interpolation and property binding when it comes to attaching text onto an element that's in the DOM. So for example, you can use reading here. That's one way to attach a string into your p tag, or you could do inner text, right? Equals reading, right? Say this. So yeah, so inner text is an attribute for the property tag. So I mean, there's two ways to do it. So Angular is very flexible like that. And any questions on that, on property binding? Yeah.
I just want to backtrack a little bit, sorry.
Yeah. No problem. No problem.
Where you have reading, is that like an Angular thing, or is that a JavaScript thing, and you can call a function within a string and then like add and subtract within the string?
Right.
Is that,
We
is
can.
that, is that part of the framework, or is that JavaScript? You can do that in JavaScript.
Well, I know in JavaScript, since it doesn't have well, it has its own string interpolation. It's with the $sign and the curly brackets.
Yeah, yeah.
This right here is Angular thing.
Okay.
So to be this, yeah. So it's an Angular thing.
Okay.
I have that. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So now we're gonna move on to event binding. So I'm typing some things here, some examples of event binding. So all these tags have, and also besides attributes, they also have events that the user could interact with, and it will do something. It will perform an action. So for button, they have something called onClick, right? Are you guys familiar with the onClick? Yes. So when you click on something, the onClick gets triggered, and it triggers whatever functionality is associated with the onClick, whatever functionality is assigned to the onClick. With Angular, anything that has like like the original attributes onClick, you would do the same. You could attach functionality, but it's gonna be called just click. So anything with the on, you could remove the on, and just attach the rest of the word. So for example, this button has an onClick method, so we're gonna call it on. And let's run some logic here. So this is gonna be, let's say, clicked, and this is gonna be return. So we go in our template. It's actually let's return. So I'm creating a variable here called hi string, and that'll be hi. Okay, so I create a variable called hi. It equals hi, the string hi, and I'm returning this to hi. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. Okay, actually I want to modify a variable. So okay. So I forgot. Cool. Okay, cool. So, oh my gosh.
Do you need a return on the function?
No, because, okay, so we did string interpolation to have access to this hi variable. And we have it here. And there it is. So we have a hi variable here, string. Okay, cool. So when I click this button, I add exclamation marks to the hi. So I keep doing it. Yeah, magic. Hey, cool. All right. So that's one form of event binding. And another example I want to do is, so right here, let's do something called copy. And let's actually run this variable too, same one. Clicked. So save it. So the original attribute would be what? It would be on copy, right? So a way, you're like, oh, how did you get this attribute? So a way you could do this is, let's say you inspect this and you click right here. If you're using Chrome, you can click properties and you click H1 and you see all the attributes they have access to. So you have on copy, on cut, and then these are inner text, which we used previously. Yeah, all these. Cool. So you have a okay. So which one? Event, right? When I copy this event, when I try to copy it, it triggers the click, which adds exclamation marks to hi. So if I do a right click and I put copy, it adds it. Cool. And let's do one for input. Input's gonna be, let's do, what's the one? Paste. Yeah, let's do paste. And let's do, let's just trigger the same one. Okay, so if I try to paste something within the input, what do you think is gonna happen? So I copied this, and then if I paste in here, what do you think is gonna happen?
It'll, the function.
It'll add exclamation marks. It triggers that same function. Cool.
You only paste it, just adds it. Some more.
Yeah, because oh, again, if I do it again. Okay. So, yeah. So this is event binding. So one of the questions that I had was, can you pass parameters into the event or into the function whenever there's a event? So actually, let's do. Okay. This out. Input. And this has an input attribute. And then I want to call, I guess, clicking. I'm going to call it clicking. And then there's a reserved word called event, but it's with the $sign.
It's reserved by.
It's reserved by Angular, correct. So we go here, we have to create a function, and we called it clicking. Wait, I don't want to go too far. Okay, so it passes this event into here. And we're gonna call it event. It's not, I'm just calling it event. We call it E, we call it like dog, whatever. I'll just call it event. And there's something in TypeScript called any, right? If you don't know what the type is, because we're passing an event like you don't know what the type is, you can use any. Any is like, it could be anything, right? It's like your like safety net if you don't know what the type is. Okay, and let's console.log what the event is.
Do you have to have the type in there?
A what?
Like, what if you didn't put the any in there?
If I don't put the any,
at all, yes. Would it break?
it wouldn't work. No, it just gives you this thing that's annoying. Oh, okay, actually that's pretty good. So it implicitly has the any type, so it just assigns the any type to it. But since we're good developers, good programmers, good coders, we're gonna type it. No, we're gonna, yeah. So we save this. So we save this. Save this. Cool. And you have our input. And we look in our console, and we're gonna console.log the event, right? So let's type in Q, and I get an error. What the heck? Clicking is not a function. Clicking. It's a function. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with. I'm just gonna comment all this out. I'm just gonna use. Okay. See, okay, no errors. Okay, cool. So when I type stuff in, blah blah blah, I get something called an input event. Do you guys see that? I know it's small, but trust me, something called input event.
The actual data that's in
Cool.
data.
Yeah.
Can you access that later if you wanted to, or save it somewhere? The data there and put it in?
Yes. Good question. That's what I was gonna get into. Yes, good. Sharp. So notice that in the event, there's something called target. And you guys know. And then
Because React.
yeah,
So
so
we're wondering like how, we're kind of comparing.
yes, yes. So if you guys worked with React before, you always have to look for event.target.value, right? That sounds super familiar. So like, who's used React before? So you guys know event.target.value. So it's the same thing, the same concept. So we go event.target.value. Roads. Okay. So when I type stuff in, it appears on my console, right? But since we're good developers, we want to type this, right? So whenever we're here, we type it as events. All right, but then you get an error here, right? So this is where you have to Google and find out like, okay, what's the type for this? You go use any, but we want to be good developers, so we have to use what's called the HTML input element, or it's just HTML input. HTML, that's it, right? Huh. I don't make HTML. Try something else. Yeah. Let's, I thought there's an element. What the heck? It's just when I did it at home, it was something else. Okay, cool. I don't know, man. I practiced this morning, and that's what's frustrating. Like, I'm gonna do such a good job. Okay, I'm getting all these random errors. It's not refreshing when I want it to. Okay, cool. So, okay. What was it doing? Okay. So, let's actually make X. Let's actually use high again. And let's make this dot high, whatever that is. You guys need me to slow down? I know I'm going kind of fast. Okay. So let's do high. So whatever I typed in gets added over and over again. Cool. So then you could pass, what was it, Anthony? Yeah, you could pass in parameters into your function in an event.
That's pretty consistent with just vanilla JavaScript, where event listeners take an event
Yeah,
parameter.
yeah. So if you know JavaScript pretty well, doing this would be pretty easy. The only thing that's hard is the typing, because that's something that you would have to Google. TypeScript does a pretty good job of referencing. Yeah, like
So, well, that actually, because you're typing it as a type of event in the parameter, but then you're casting it to a different type. Oh, but you're casting the event.target, which is the event. Okay.
yeah. So like if you hover over these, this is like an event that takes place in DOM, and then this gives it additional functionality that this is a HTML input element.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That is TypeScript, correct?
Yeah, this is TypeScript.
Okay. Right.
So like, no, this is TypeScript. All this is TypeScript.
That's
So
TypeScript, right?
if this is giving you issues, just type in any, and it'll all work.
No, just the HTML input element.
Yeah.
portion, that part in the parentheses, that part, like, what is going on?
Yeah. Okay. So this is like an event, right? It's a general event.
Yeah.
So if I want to use event.target, I have to type it as an HTML input element.
Because
I hope it was an HTML input. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. You just have to type in random things and it works. And then it gives it like you go hover over this. TypeScript is really good about like describing its types. So it provides special properties and methods for manipulating the options, layout, and presentation of input elements. So this is an input element. So yeah, so then it gives you that functionality of using.
Or syntax.
Yeah, the syntax is weird.
Yeah.
The syntax with Angular is something you have to get used to, especially because it's TypeScript. Not a lot of people use TypeScript.
Yeah.
But like for example, if I'm a coder and I'm looking at this, I know okay, this data is coming from what type of element?
Yeah.
Where's it coming from? HTML. What type of element though? An input, right? I don't have to like console log, so it saves you time in the long run. But when you're coding, it does take a little bit more time. But when you read, it makes it so much easier to read. Yeah, cool. I think that is good. Yeah, that's how much time you got? I think that's good for today. Do you guys have any other questions?
I just want to see how it handles data and stuff. You know what I mean? How you store it, how you save it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to compare like how React does it versus how Angular does it.
So I know React has state, right?
Yeah, we have state.
So you modify the state.
Yeah.
So I know you guys, like in React, there's just one-way binding. And with Angular, there's two-way binding. We haven't talked about two-way binding yet. Because that's like a whole other. Yeah.
I thought Angular 1 had two-way binding, but Angular 2 did away with it.
Angular 1, I haven't played too much around with Angular
Okay.
1, but I know Angular 2 and up has the two-way binding.
The two-way binding is if the data changes in the back end, it updates in the front end, and vice versa.
Yeah, so there's two sources of where the data could be manipulated. The
Uh-huh.
front, well, it's both front end, but like
Right,
the
yeah.
template and
Front end client, front end server.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah,
There's advantages to both. Like, I mean, there's actually sort of a hot topic when two-way or one-way data binding is, whatever. It's like you get more overhead with two-way, but it's kind of a
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of a,
yeah. So the two-way binding, it's easy to use, but it's a bit tricky to understand. So you would have to understand property binding and event binding, because that's what two-way binding is. It does a combination of event and property binding. Yeah, because that way, because event binding is how the template interacts with the I guess what do you call it, the front end servers. Yeah, and then the property binding is how it's the other way around. So there's that two-way binding. Yeah, cool.
I would say that we have made the distinction between two and one-way binding.
Yeah.
It allows you to change your UI
Yeah.
based on your variable.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm seeing here is that Angular gives you more freedom, if you will, if you want to call it that way, to manipulate the communication between the controller and the view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say freedom, because I feel this is more restricted because of the typing, right? It's like I gotta type.
Well,
but that's
Yeah, but at the same time I can see how it's freedom.
you have more choices.
Yeah, have more
That's the
choices.
more value that I want to use. Well, the phrase that I want to use, because in reality, you don't have that distinction.
Yeah.
You just have, okay, I need to bind this variable, and if I choose the variable, my UI will change. And if for some reason we have to bend, especially with the input elements, I change the value, that value that I enter will be received by the person.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Cool. So does anyone have any other questions? No? Okay, cool. So if you build an Angular app, tag IESD, what's really tag Silicon Empire. That way we could like get more like technology companies noticing us right here. We get more jobs, So whatever app you build, just tag Silicon Empire. People will be like, oh, what's the Silicon Empire? It's this new thing here. So yeah, cool. Thank you guys for your time. I'm available afterwards for questions.